Hi, it's Mark Albert. Really appreciate you being with me. Today, we're going to talk about your RRSPs and converting it over to your RRIF. So in your working years, you're making money and you're contributing to an RRSP. The S in RRSP is for savings, so Registered Retirement Savings Plan. And at some point, maybe you're no longer working, but you still need income. So you would convert your RRSPs to a RRIF. The I in RRIF is for income, a Registered Retirement Income Fund. So in the working years, we accumulate wealth. RRSPs is a good tax deferred way to do that. And then we deaccumulate our money in the retirement years. Our income is usually lower than it was in our working years. So hopefully we learn a few things here. If you're approaching those years of retirement, this may be good for you to see this. So basically, we want to convert the RRSP from an RRSP to a RRIF. And those are the acronyms there. So to do that, we need to understand that we have options. They have a schedule. We're going to look at the schedule here shortly, but there's a minimum amount that you require to take once you convert it to a RRIF. So you'll start getting those payments the year after you convert it to a RRIF. So let's say I have RRSPs this year, and then I convert it over to a RRIF this year. I can't receive those minimum payments until the beginning of next year. Okay, so and minimum payments, you're going to be taxed as if it was income. It's an income fund. You're going to get a tax slip. You're going to get a T4 RRIF. You're going to give to your accountant. And anything beyond the minimum, there's going to be withholding tax, and we'll discuss that shortly. So that's good. Now, let's look at the minimum age. So basically, there is no minimum age. We can convert at any time as we have RSPs. And usually that happens as you get a little later in your years, close to retirement, based on your circumstances. And then the maximum age is basically the year you turn 71. That year, you have no choice based on the federal government laws, because it's a federal government program. RRSP, TFSA, those are federal government programs as it pertains to tax sheltering and tax deferral. So that year, the year you turn 71, you're going to have to switch or convert your RRSP to a RRIF. So just know that, and that it has to happen at that point, and you can't receive the minimum payments until following that year of conversion. So let's talk about the tax side. So we've mentioned it already. So the money that you are saving or that you've saved in your RRSP, but now is converted into your RRIF. The money that's in the RRIF, any growth, any interest growth that occurs is tax-free. So it's tax-free growth. And the tax on this product is deferred in the sense that you only are taxed when you withdraw. So when you receive your payments, there's taxation. You're going to get a receipt, a T4 RRIF, and all withdrawals are fully taxable. Okay? Now, in addition to being taxed as if it was income, there is a withholding tax, but only on every dollar beyond the minimum payment that you would receive. There's a withholding tax. Now, the withholding tax schedule looks this way. So right here, any amount up to $5,000 that you withdraw of your RRIF that is higher than or greater than the minimum payment, you will be taxed a withholding tax of 10%, and that goes directly back to the federal government for the CRA for tax purposes. It's a withholding tax. So that means that if you withdraw $5,000, the withholding above the minimum on the RRIF, the withholding tax is 10% of that 5,000, which is $500. So of the 5,000 you withdrew beyond the minimum, you're only going to get 4,500 of that in your bank account, but you're going to receive a tax receipt, a T4 RRIF tax slip for the full 5,000, even though 10% of that you never saw it. It went right back to the government. You're taxed at source when it comes to that. So if you withdraw anywhere between 5,000 and 15,000 beyond the RRIF minimum, then it's a 20% withholding tax. Anything beyond 15,000 is 30%. So it could really be a big deal if you pull out way too much money, and it could throw you into a higher tax bracket in addition to all of the withholding taxes that you're going to suffer in terms of penalty there. Not penalty, but taxation. Many people that I speak to, they would say, oh yeah, taxation is a penalty sometimes. Seems like we're being taxed pretty heavily and unnecessarily on things, because there's basically a double tax here. You're taxed as if it's income, but in addition to that, beyond the minimum withdrawal, there's a withholding tax, and you're in your retirement years. So this is here the schedule. So basically, let's say you go off of your age of 65 when you start receiving payments. So 4% is the minimum. So if you had $100,000 RRIF, 4% of 100,000 is 4,000. So in that year, you would receive, the year you're 65, you'd receive $4,000. So if you still had, let's say you had 5,000 and you're 70 years old, and you were to switch it to a RRIF, and in the year you're 70, when you would receive 5,000. So 5% of 100,000 in this case would be 5,000. So for that year is 5,000. So you see the minimum, this is the minimum. You can pull out as much as you want, but anything within the minimum, there's no withholding tax. But you have to take the minimum at least. But you see how what happens is the higher, as the years go on, let's take 85, for example. 85 years old, you're taxed at 8.51%, significantly higher than when you were 65, right? So at 8.51%, the thing is, in your retirement, you should be in a more conservative investment portfolio, because in the later years, you can't afford to take the risk in the markets like you can when you're in your younger years. So what happens here is that 8.51% is a percent of a much smaller amount of money that you may have in your RRIF, okay? So it may end up being, you may receive about the same amount of money from your RRIF than when you were 65, okay? But look at here, when you hit 95, from that point on, it's 20%, but it's 20% of a much smaller amount within the RRIF, and it may not last much longer. You know, when you get into the 90s, the percentage is pretty high, and so that would be something there to be aware of. So when you do your financial planning and you're strategizing the timing of when you should RRIF, to make sure you have enough income in your retirement years, be good to get professional advice and work with a financial advisor. I myself am a certified executor advisor, and my son and I, we work as a father-son team. We'd be happy to help you on any of this type of strategy. So thanks for being with me, and have yourself a wonderful day.